so it sort of begs the question, will there be a tipping point? Will there be a point where these officers say, okay, we've had enough of the obscenities, enough of this sort of back and forth with these demonstrators, and they take out those zip ties, which we saw them get some of those zip ties out. Some of them were carrying them out. Some of them were not carrying those even just about 40 minutes ago or so. And I did notice that when some of those officers started taking out those zip ties, it caused some of these people here to disperse.
Yeah, I imagine so. What did could you hear what the protesters are saying? What are they saying? Give us a flavor of just the tone, the message that they're trying to send tonight. What's happening with that?
Well, what I can tell you, what I can say on television, without offending, is a lot of these people are screaming, first things first, no ICE, not in Los Angeles, no National Guard, not here in California. And then you do see some of those in the crowd who are of Hispanic descent seeming to try to specifically target some of the officers who are also of, and maybe of Hispanic descent, saying, aren't you ashamed of yourself? This could be your aunt, this could be your cousin, this could be your mother, your father. And so you see a lot of that. And I've seen some of these demonstrators trying to have some sort of a dialogue with these officers, but trying to engage them in that way. But between all that, you've got some of the you just heard what this protester said here, not engaged, make them think. But you also have some of the hardliners who are out here as well, who are not looking to engage in that way, they're looking to engage with violence. And those are the ones that have to be weeded out by these officers. And that's what they're having to deal with. And again, the question becomes, when is there going to be a tipping point, right? When are they going to get to a point where they say enough of this back and forth, we need to move and start making arrests.
Yeah.
Now, it's this back and forth that we've seen over the past.
It continues to be, we're going to continue to stay with you, Jason. We'll be right back with you as soon as we continue to see things on the ground. Right now in the studio, Maria Elena Salinas is a former Univision anchor, and she is one of the most recognized Latina journalists in this country and around the world, the voice of Hispanic media. We're lucky to have you tonight. I mean, on that note, we were just talking to Jason about the message in the streets and what caused this, right? So the ICE aid raids happened. Immigration detentions happened under Democratic and Republican administration. So what has been different in the last few weeks and months?
Well, I think not only the protests, but also the fight between President Trump and Governor Newsom is sort of like a little attention from the real issue at heart here, which is the abuse of the immigration authorities and the way that they're conducting these raids and the way that they're arresting people and the inhumanity and the illegality in which they're doing it, going into workplaces without warrants, going into homes without warrants, breaking people's windows in their cars to drag them out, going to courthouses to arrest people who are going precisely because they have an appointment with a judge in order to make continue their process to legalize their status. And I think what's different this time is that this is Los Angeles. We've seen protests all over the country. You're seeing some right now in Texas. We've seen them in New York and New Jersey, and Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, but not LA. Why LA? What they want is ICE out of our town. LA is a city. I'm from LA. I was born in LA. That's where my roots are. That's where I started my career. It is almost 50% Hispanic. Remember that California was part of Mexico. All of the Southwest is Mexico. So the roots are really deep in that region. And what they're saying is, no, not in our community. Because when they're coming in, even though there's second, third, fourth, fifth generation Latinos that live there, Mexican Americans that live there, some of them might be their family members. The people that they're going after, it's personal for them because they're going after their cousin and their uncle and their parents. And how does that make us safe?
I just want to point from earlier comment. This is all, the big picture is this. This is about political power. Okay, and Greater Los Angeles is about 4 million people. Of that, 1.4 million are foreign born, 800,000 are illegal. 800,000 is a congressional seat. About 750,000 people per congressional seat, according to the last census. If you multiply that by 30 million people in the country illegally, that's over 30 congressional seats, most of which would be Democrat, because they're going to be in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. If you picture the U.S. Congress with 30 less Democrats, that's what this is about. That's why they're protesting. That's why this won't stop in Los Angeles. They're going to split all the country. This is 2020. No, it's not. It's not.
Guys, one second. Angela, Hal, just 1 second. Let me ask let me put on the table a different scenario. Have you considered that this is also, to Maria Elena's point, about people, families that are being separated? I mean, we've seen the videos of parents being detained in front of their children, people who are showing up at their court cases with their families, only to find out that suddenly their case has disappeared and they are being disappeared into detention. So no, I'm asking you, do you care about that? Because there is a human element to this. These are people, okay? There's politics, but these are also people, right?
It's interesting to see how much we pick and choose. And let's start with the premise. You have nothing to worry about anywhere in America today if you are not breaking the law. If you are here legally, you can sleep well tonight. You're not going to be deported because you didn't break the law. Let me just say something. The second point is that the idea that we should justify violence against police or ICE because we're separating families.
Just to be clear, I want to
the rioters are.
The who?
The rioters, the people that attack police and drop
I just want to be clear.
throwing things at them.
No one. I just want to be very clear. No
They
one
are.
here
The people
is
watching TV
justifying
are.
violence against us.
Here's what I will say. The idea that it's justifiable because the family's being split up. There's news in America every single day. There are children that cry when their mom or dad, who's an American citizen, that breaks the law, gets arrested and goes to jail. I have watched it, and there's no rioting and looting over that because we understand that we're either a country of laws or we are not a country of laws. Every day we send moms and dads who are American citizens to prison, and we separate them from their families. And you know why we don't feel sorry for them? Because we judge them on the law, and we say if you break the law in America, we put you in jail. So why is it different from
Donald Trump party. Donald Trump's party. We can get.
I don't care about that. Exactly. We didn't choose. I mean, I'll argue with you. That's fine. The point is
that true? Is that
go back to what? I go back to the
you
point.
can't say in one breath that we enforce the laws. We can't say that in one breath we enforce the laws, but then at the same time it's politically convenient when there is a law being enforced by somebody. When it's somebody who I'm not here. I would never hear
Say it to all the people that
say everybody know you want to. I'm not.
all the people that got pardoned from Biden. I'm cool with that.
You are okay with all the people that got pardoned.
All right. Maria Elena, she wants to say
this about this because they keep saying, talking about illegal aliens. First of all, I don't like to use the word illegal. It is undocumented. Coming into the country without documents, it's not illegal. It's not a crime. It is a misdemeanor. Excuse me. It is a. Can I finish? It is a misdemeanor. And
It's against the law.
It is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor.
It is a misdemeanor, just like DUI is a misdemeanor, just like indecent
I've been hit by a
assault.
driver who died. Don't tell me that's a misdemeanor when he crashed my family over 100 miles an hour. I'm sorry. That if you want to say that DUI is somehow a misdemeanor and we should treat it like it's not committing a criminal act, you said it's a misdemeanor like it's the same thing.
It is a misdemeanor, just like coming
It's
into
still
the
breaking the law.
That's not the point. There's a lot of misconceptions, and one of them is that it is a misdemeanor to come into the country illegally. If you get deported and then come back in, then it becomes a crime. But even then, if it becomes a crime, that doesn't mean that you're a rapist and that you're a murderer and that you're a drug dealer. I think President Trump lied to the American people because when he was in his campaign, he said, we are going to deport undocumented or illegal aliens, if they want to use that word, who are criminals, who are violent criminals, who are killing our people, who are raping our women, who are bringing in the drugs. And then Tom Homan, and then Tom Homan comes and says, no, we're not. We're going to.
What's the number of killer?
Just a minute. We are going to deport. We're going to deport everyone. We're going to deport everyone who does not have documents in this country, even some who are here legally who have legal residence. So, who is in charge here? Donald Trump says one thing, Coleman says another
Well,
thing.
one of the reasons that is happening.
Coleman who's in charge, or is it President Trump who said that they were only going to report violent criminals?
It was always clear that that was never going to be the case with Trump because they were never going to get to the numbers that he promised if he only deported violent criminals. And so what has happened is that in order to push the numbers up, they said that they've hit 2,000 arrests a day. They have to do that with the broadest possible brush. In other words, they are, in fact, now going after everyone, and including sometimes picking up citizens who then have to fight to prove that they're citizens. So that's one of the reasons that that's happening.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing great concern. I mean, what I do in my day job, so to speak, is run a network of homeless shelters and homeless service organizations. We have seen repeatedly ICE come to our shelters without legal warrant and try to apprehend people. In one case, trying to apprehend a 9-year-old boy. They are behaving more than frequently in ways that are not legal and trying to pick up people who there is not evidence that they have done any illegal activity, and even targeting, as I said, children. That has raised a level of concern. That concern should never go to violence. It should never target law enforcement. Of course not. But we cannot pretend that hasn't happened, and we can't pretend that the president isn't in a box where he's never going to get to the numbers he said unless illegal activity happens by law enforcement.
We have to squeeze in a quick break, everyone. We'll be right back with much more on what's happening in Los Angeles and with our panel here in the studio. We'll be right back.
I am visiting my town, the town of Longoria in Asturias.
Welcome to the Isle of Cheese.
Oh, that's nice.
Además,
Es mi favorito plato de España.
Eva Longoria searching for Spain, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
Zepbound means change. For adults with obesity to help lose weight and keep it off. Zepbound can help adults lose up to 48 pounds. And some lost over 58 pounds.
Zepbound works differently by activating 2 naturally occurring hormone receptors in my body. It's changing what I believe is possible when it comes to weight loss.
Don't take if allergic to it, or if you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Tell your doctor if you get a lump or swelling in your neck. Stop Zepbound and call your doctor if you have severe stomach pain or a serious allergic reaction. Severe side effects may include inflamed pancreas or gallbladder problems. Tell your doctor if you experience vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts before scheduled procedures with anesthesia. If you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills, taking Zepbound with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and worsen kidney problems. I'm working to help break the cycle of weight loss and regain.
Zepbound means change. Discover the weight loss you can be bound for.
Ask your healthcare provider about Zepbound. Explore savings options today.
Work. Play. Blink. Relief. Work. Play. Blink. Relief.
The only 3-in-1 extended relief formula for dry eyes.
Blink.
Siggy Skew, full of protein, less ingredients, less sugar, less sets you free.
Can a can of Lysol take care of my snotty sofa?
Can do. Mildewy tiles? Can do.
Please?
Yep, it's the Can Do Can. Nothing kills more germs on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect.
These are not the people that we were told were going to be detained. And it makes me feel like our city is actually a test case for what happens when the federal government moves in and takes the authority away from the state or away from local government.
We're following breaking news out of several cities across the U.S. where protesters and police are in standoffs over ICE raids, including, most notably, in Los Angeles tonight. You see the live pictures there of the situation on the ground. It's been pretty touch and go for our reporters on the ground, but Maria and Elena, I wanted to ask you because what she just said there is one of the concerns. I mean, the authority that President Trump used to deploy the National Guard without the state of California asking for it, and the Marines, is one that actually, when you read it, is very broad. It doesn't specify Los Angeles, it doesn't specify California. It suggests that anywhere where there are protests, ICE protests, they could do the same thing.
Right.
What are you seeing in the rest of the country about how all of this is playing?
Well, the rest of the country, you do see protests. There are massive protests. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. We saw the one of the young guy who was going to his volleyball practice and was detained because he overstayed his visa when he came at 6 years old. So, and then it was not just Latinos that were protesting. It was all his peers in his school that were protesting. Unfortunately, he was able to get out. But I think you are beginning to see these detentions affect people. And some of them are saying this is not what we voted for. One of them, of course, is in Florida. As you know, in Florida is probably the only state where the majority of Latinos voted for President Trump. There you have a lot of people that came to this country running away from communist and authoritarian governments. And just this week, the founder of Latinas for Trump, it's State Senator Ileana Garcia, is calling ICE's actions unacceptable, inhumane, and saying this is not what we voted for because they're sending back Cubans and Venezuelans knowing that there's a communist government in Cuba and in Venezuela there's a leftist authoritarian government. And they're here because they're running away from that.
I mean, I was reading this piece in the Wall Street Journal about how the tactics have shifted because of the desire to get the numbers up. But as a result, it's actually made it more dangerous for ICE officers to carry out detentions. And so it's like a ball rolling down a hill. It's more dangerous for ICE. They have to do detentions in larger groups so they can do fewer detentions. Is this a self-defeating strategy by the Trump administration to ramp up the tensions with these communities in order to, I don't know, maybe have a show of force?
No, I think what you're saying is, and the ICE agents that I've talked to a lot of them, they're not saying that. What they're saying is this is what happens when you allow 10, 15, 20 million illegal immigrants in this country. That was the chaos. The number one killer of people my age in this country is fentanyl overdosing. That is a fact. If you want to protect people in this country, you're going to have to deal with a problem. And the problem is there are too many people that broke into this country illegally. And ICE are more than happy in saying thank you to the president for letting them finally do their job. What they are concerned about, and when they do get in trouble, as you mentioned, where they are scared, is when they don't have cooperation with local jurisdictions that refuse to work with ICE and their sanctuary cities. That does put their lives at risk because now you have an entire local government that's saying, we're going to turn our back to you. Good luck if you get hurt or injured.
None of that is new, and yet detentions for Trump appear to be running behind, even just last year. So I guess what I'm saying is, but I know, but what you're describing, which is that they're sanctuary cities, that's been around for a long time.
Not in the way they are now.
No, there are sanctuary cities that have been around for a long time.
43.
When I was working in Los Angeles, I'll say it. Hold on. I'll say it. I'm older than all of this, so respect here. When I started working at Channel 34 in Los Angeles, I remember perfectly well that the police department did not cooperate with immigration. Why? Because it was very important for the police department and for the sheriff department in Los Angeles to be able to have a good relationship with the community. Because they wanted to make sure that those people, it worked out perfectly.
You have it's more than you've ever had in any city in America.
That's not true.
I live in Houston. Tell me a city.
Okay.
LA. Is this you're telling me that LA is
Then let me finish telling you what I was going to say. I heard this is very important to have a relationship with those communities to make sure that if they are either victims of crimes or witnesses of crimes, they would not feel
Here's what I said.
I don't want us to get off track because I mean the reason you mentioned that is because you were trying to argue that the lack of cooperation is something that's related to Trump. That's not true. It's been around for a long time. Yeah, but it's not been that is
ever seen in
why then?
But the arrests are the worst I've ever been.
If the strategy is working.
There are not more sanctuary cities now than there were before.
No.
That is not true. But you're saying that things are overpriced because there's more more sanctuary city and sanctuary city activities. That is not true. I did hear.
I'm going to say it again to be clear.
I don't need to.
I'm going to say it again to be clear. I said that the sanctuary cities now are bigger than they've ever been with illegal immigrants. So LA's had more illegals than they've had in 2025.
They're not more sanctuary cities.
And Houston, you're telling me there are less illegals
hold on a
in
second.
2025
So
than
then,
in 2020?
let me just clarify because I don't want us to get where this is like a silly thing. It is. Are you saying that there are just more people and that's why this is a bigger problem?
I'm saying that when you have a country that's been flooded with illegal immigrants to the tune of 15 or 20 million, it is a bigger issue now than it's ever been.
What is a bigger issue?
For law enforcement to get it under control.
Hold on a second.
Law enforcement in Los Angeles.
So by this logic, hold on a second. Hold on a second. By this logic, okay? I just want us to stay on track because you're saying there's so many illegal immigrants in this country that it's a huge problem, which it is a problem. But by that same token, the strategies that the Trump administration is using is not producing more arrests and detention than previous administrations. So if it's 10 times the problem today to us then, how do you explain that? How do you explain that?
Here's how you explain it. You're saying Biden deported more. That's at the border. They were deporting people right when they came across. They got numbers up. It was a fake number is what it was. We've shut the border down. They weren't deporting people from the interior. This is an interior deportation.
They were deporting people. Hold on. They were deporting. Yes, he was. They were deporting people from the interior to the point where I know you remember this. It was a huge political problem for Barack Obama. So look, listen. The question. I think the question I'm asking you all is about. Look, I understand. Republicans voted for deportations. That is on the table. But the question is about tactics and strategy, whether they're effective or whether they're counterproductive. And I think that's where we are as a country right now. All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour. Everyone, thank you very much. CNN special coverage continues right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening, I'm Laura Cope with live photos right now from Los Angeles, where the sun is now setting on a fourth day of protest sparked by the Trump administration's immigration raids. A short time ago, police began throwing flashbangs and shooting rubber bullets to clear the area in the federal building in downtown Los Angeles. Some protesters were seen throwing plastic bottles and fireworks at the officers. This is all unfolding as President Trump is deploying the U.S. military to L.A. He's ordered military in the city. The California's governor says as he's been told Trump plans to bring in an additional 2,000 troops. That's on top of the 2,000 who were first deployed. The protests are spreading to other cities tonight. You can also hear at Dallas. On the left is a clash between police and protesters earlier. And on the right is a standoff that's happening as you and I are talking. CNN's Jason Carroll is live on the ground in downtown Los Angeles. Jason, it's been a tense few hours. What is the status now?
Well, Laura, for the past 20, 30 minutes or so, we've been in a holding pattern. And I say that because if you look at these line of officers right now, right over here, you can see they are engaging somewhat with some of these protesters who are out here, but it certainly isn't the volatile situation that we saw out here a half an hour ago, and then a half hour before that, and then 20 minutes before that, this sort of back and forth with these officers and the protesters. And when it was, I don't know, about an hour or so ago, you had a much larger presence of protesters who were out here, Laura. At certain points, they were throwing bottles. They were throwing other devices, other things at some of these officers. It's when they threw the fireworks at the officers, that's when they moved in, started using rubber bullets, started using these flashbangs, whatever they could to get these crowds moved back. And I also want to sort of move around in this other direction to show you there are more officers down here at the end of this street where we are in downtown Los Angeles, right towards the Arts District. So you've got a line of officers who are down there, a line of officers who you just saw, and then this crowd here, now much more sparse than what we saw just a few hours ago. And that's sort of been the back and forth that I've been talking about. Each time we see these officers move in as a lined force, the crowd seems to disperse a little bit more and a little bit more. The question then becomes, Laura, as the crowd disperses, who's left? I mean, what we've seen is a number of the people who were out here earlier who wanted to make a point about migrants' rights and about getting ICE out of the state, about getting the National Guard out of Los Angeles. A lot of those people who were on message have disappeared and in all likelihood have gone home. What's left is a different type of group. And so now becomes the point where we see what officers who are here, what they're going to do. We have not seen a great deal of arrests that have been out here, at least from this vantage point, but we have seen some of these officers now with white zip ties, and so the question now becomes, how much longer will they stand here and continue to engage with these protesters who are left? Laura?
As the sun is going down, these officers have gone nowhere, Jason. They are probably expecting, obviously, to be there for quite some time. Let me ask you, though, in terms of the message out here in Washington, D.C., has been that the National Guard might be being brought in or is being brought in. Has that message reached these protesters? Are they aware? Is there some murmuring in the crowd about it?
Without question. And where we were at the federal building, several blocks away, you could see a number of National Guardsmen and women who were out there in full force. And in talking to the people who've been coming out here to demonstrate, it is one of the points that they've made is that why was the decision made by the administration to call in the National Guard. I mean, look, these protesters, Laura, as you may well imagine, already had the issues with the LAPD. Adding the National Guard on top of that seemed to, in some ways, invigorate the crowd in some respects, but it also seemed to anger some members of the crowd as well. And so one has to question about that decision. These are some of the questions and discussions that will be had after this, but clearly, from a number of people that we spoke to, bringing in the National Guard was something that either invigorated some of those that we spoke to and angered others.
And as you say, that line of officers remains, even though the crowd is dispersing, they're undoubtedly preparing for what may be to come. Jason Carroll, please stand by. I want to go back in just a moment, but I want to bring in former Minneapolis Police Chief Madera Arredondo. He was the chief when George Floyd was killed by a former officer 5 years ago. Chief, what is your assessment right now of how the LAPD is handling all that's in front of them?
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight, Laura. Well, first off, I want to commend Chief McDonald of the LAPD. He's responsible, Laura, ultimately for the safety and security of the 4 million Los Angelinians. And so that's critical for him right now. That's his number one priority. Obviously, there's different dynamics going on right now, whether it's the protest taking place outside of the federal jail there. Certainly, they had the issues in downtown. They've declared a unlawful assembly, as well as some of the incidents that were occurring on the freeway overpasses.
And by the way, Chief,
he's got
what would that mean as a chief, if you declared an area an unlawful assembly place? What protocols would that trigger?
It's going to, Laura, it's going to trigger, first of all, the chief, and through his intelligence and through obviously what he's seeing on the ground, it's unsafe. It's unsafe for business workers down there. It's unsafe for normal residents of that area, as well as for the peaceful protesters themselves. There's a dynamic of violence and criminal activity that has sprung up where he has to declare that it's safer for people to leave that area, and they must leave that area. So Chief McDonald and his teams are dealing with these different multiple dynamics. Again, his priority is going to not only be to keep those areas safe, but also now with the obviously with the addition of National Guard, those citizen soldiers and airmen, and now with the possibility of military soldiers coming in, logistics, communication. They've already been under mutual aid. Chief McDonald's had to make sure that as much as he can, everyone's on the same page as far as the county assistance, the other local state assistance, and now the federal assistance. It is a massive undertaking, Laura, and as we get into the fourth night here, obviously there's a concern as night falls, but also You don't want these things to have these protracted engagements over a period of time. Chief McDonald's has already called for a tactical alert, meaning the Los Angeles Police Department members that you see on your screen. Many of those have been working for many, many hours, probably double shifts. They've got to work in logistics to make sure that they have enough personnel to relieve those folks and then bring in fresh personnel as well. So, again, Chief McDonald is also behind the scenes, I can guarantee you. He's having communication. He's reaching out to faith leaders. He's reaching out to union organizers. He's reaching out to those peaceful protest leaders to try to also get them to help with keeping Los Angeles safe and secure over the next several days here.
I mean, undoubtedly, some of the lessons that you learned from the George Floyd protests that happened in really both of our hometowns in Minnesota. I do wonder, when you look at that period of time and thinking about the troops that came in there, I remember seeing tanks in the street in different areas and places I usually didn't walk in even as a child. Tell me about some of those lessons learned and the idea of how you would then calm a situation knowing that the National Guard might be present. Obviously, it's going to perhaps be triggering, or invigorating, as my friend and colleague Jason Carroll noted, for those who do not have the best of intentions.
Well, and that's a great point, Laura, that you mentioned. When we saw some of the National Guard equipment rolling through our streets of Minneapolis, yes, there were many community members that was very traumatizing, very triggering. It put the onus on me and my leadership team and folks out there in the field to communicate regularly with community members to explain the reason why. I have to commend our National Guard leadership at the time. They also set aside liaison teams within the National Guard to assist Minneapolis police at that time to communicate.
And was that productive, Chief, at the time? Was that a productive?
It was very productive. I think what the community saw from that, Laura, was that this was not a standalone sort of operations, that both the local police department, our National Guard, were working together, and the ultimate goal was to keep our city and our communities safe. But to your point, yes, it can be very triggering for communities, but I have no doubt that Chief McDonald of the LAPD, him and his teams are working to over-communicate. You can never communicate enough when you have such dynamic and fluid situations going on in your city.
You wonder also on the flip side of that, if people perceive the local law enforcement in cahoots with National Guard, does that make them less trusting of the law enforcement to handle and quell the situation? It's a question that I've been asking the protest out there tonight. Let me ask you though, because LA's mayor, Karen Bass, says that her city is being, her words, used for an experiment.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. First of all, I just want to thank y'all for coming out here. I really want to thank you for that shout out.
What was that like during the George Floyd protest?
You know, I was very fortunate. I had a very good relationship with our federal partners before May 25th, 2020, and building those relationships in the quiet moments really helped me and our NPD during that time. So again, that was critical to build those relationships before that. No doubt, again, I believe that Chief McDonald is really doing a lot of communication with his local, state, and federal partners. You know, Laura, the folks that have the advantage on the ground in terms of the public safety apparatus are the LAPD. It's their sergeants and their lieutenants and their supervisors. They know the district, they know the neighborhoods, they know the people. They will also know those who are out there peacefully protesting, and they will also know, as Jason Carroll mentioned in his report, when the sun goes down and those peaceful protesters leave, those community members are also going to know who's out there who are bad actors, who are actually causing more harm to the community than good. And so LAPD and Chief McDonald's teams are going to have that advantage that quite frankly, our citizen soldiers and airmen who might not be familiar with LA, they're not going to know that, as well as the other troops coming in.
Well, the sun is just starting to set in LA. It's already set in Dallas, where we have live footage right now of additional protests happening. You have a line of police vehicles. There are flags on the other side of the crosswalk. You have a group of people that are gathered together right opposite of law enforcement right now. You have, it appears to be just regular cars that are stopped on the road beside it as well. what the toll protests in an area can actually take on the law enforcement community, especially if, as you can doubtless imagine, different cities are probably communicating about what's happening in their own places.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you that chiefs around the country, they're communicating, they're certainly watching your program, and they're relying upon each other. Obviously, we're in the time of social media. Protest groups they can be in Los Angeles and can be communicating to their counterparts in Dallas or Minneapolis or other parts of the country. So the toll that it also takes is it can strain the resources and the personnel of municipal police departments. People have to remember, LA's got 4 million people there. The crime didn't stop tonight. It's the 4th night of this engagement, and so they still have to respond to these calls. What that does is it may mean that some of those priority 1 calls, the priority calls that they have, it's going to take longer for those officers to get there. And the police department, they want to go out there, they want to protect and serve, but when these situations happen, it can absolutely tax the resources of the police department. And so they're trying to do their best to resolve these. Again, respect First Amendment rights for those peaceful protesters, but individuals will oftentimes, and we saw it in Minneapolis, there will be a certain group of individuals that will hijack a cause, and it's about destruction and criminality, and that cannot happen. And so the chiefs of these cities, Chief McDonald, certainly in Los Angeles, he's made it loud and clear publicly, he will not tolerate it, and that's to keep everyone safe, not only the residents of Los Angeles, but the men and women in uniform as well.
Chief Arando, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. I want to bring in U.S. Army retired Major General Landon Manner, who was formerly the acting vice chair of the National Guard Bureau, and Scott Schuchart, the former senior ICE official in the Biden administration. Thank you for both of you for coming today. General, I mean, you called Trump's decision to have the National Guard involved inappropriate. Why?
First of all, the law enforcement is the first way that you go. They're trained, they're on the ground. The chief, as was already commented on, they know the communities, they know how to do this. The Guard, when there is the necessity to do it, then the city would then ask, local authorities would ask the government for assistance, and it escalates in that manner. What has happened in this particular case is the president has unilaterally said, I'm going to federalize the National Guard for the 2,000 members, now 2,000 more, and I'm going to bypass the governor's wishes.
And what does federalizing mean? Do they have the same authority as law enforcement or more limited powers?
Well, they actually have more limited powers, except for the fact that the president is now having his desire of having uniformed people on the street, soldiers, armed in this situation. And that is an escalation, not a de-escalation of the situation. So I commend the chief in LA for what he is doing, trying to maintain safety and order for his citizens.
But there is as many were looking at it, they might be wondering, is there a line between when National Guard ought to be called and local law enforcement is overwhelmed, either by the number of people who were out or the reinforcement function of the National Guard? Because that's part of what these limited powers include, right? They have a reinforcing effect, not a unilateral law enforcement cop effect.
That is exactly correct. And as you already mentioned, the law enforcement agencies as well as the National Guard, they work together all the time. It's not, we don't have time in crisis to develop relationships.
Right.
So the state and the local community leaders and the law enforcement, they have these relationships ongoing. So they know when to ask for help and anticipate when are they going to need help. And that's why you have local community and then regional and then state. And right now, that's all been bypassed by the president.
You know, I want to ask you, Scott, about this because there is this, as you mentioned, the learning curve in a crisis is going to be pretty steep, and it can't be. There's not a luxury of being able to do so. Governor Gavin Newsom has not requested the National Guard to be there. This is the first time, I think, in like over 6 decades now that a president has put in the National Guard without the request from the governor. Last time in LA, because of George H.W. Bush during the Rodney King riots, he had requested, with Pete Wilson, then governor of California, requested at that point he would be there. Talk we know now about the decision of Governor Gavin Newsom to sue the administration. Proven or not?
It seems like it was necessary in order to protect the state's sovereign claim. He He is the commander-in-chief of that National Guard, and more to the point, he and his people are the people who are responsible for public safety.
We're watching right now as you're speaking the police line moving closer to the apparent civilians who are on the streets right now in Dallas. You're hearing an escalation of horns blowing, watching them walk closer and closer from our overhead view. You do see a group of people who are scattering around. There's a flag being thrown. I believe that the flag being thrown near the left side of the screen as well. But the police force is moving closer to the people at this hour in Dallas. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that he's asserting the state's sovereign role in keeping its people safe. What lawsuits have become the way parts of our government speak to each other now. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but it's the way we operate.
When you look at the trajectory of that litigation, though, obviously the priority right now is to quell the unrest on the streets of today. But how does this play out in court? What are the next steps? Who is overseeing this?
Well, it's in the Northern District of California. I had a regular judge in the San Francisco district. Last I checked, it hadn't been assigned to a judge yet, and the state hadn't asked for any emergency relief.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know that they really think that there's anything to be done right now, and I don't want to characterize it as a political document. It's not a political lawsuit, but it's a lawsuit about explaining the different roles of the different parts of government. Is there really going to be a role for the judiciary in policing that, or is this part of a dialogue that we need to have between the state and the feds about who's going to do which piece of law enforcement collaboration?
General, when you look at this and think about that collaboration, not just in terms of what's happening in the legal field sphere, but when these two entities are working side by side, obviously the LAPD, I'm assuming, will take the more senior role here. Is that right?
That's correct. The National Guard is always in support, and that's very important to understand that partnership. The National Guard, when it's under the governor's control, is supporting the local sheriff, supporting the local police chief, making things happen.
So how does that work in terms of the theory of too many chefs in the kitchen? What if they have different viewpoints of how to stop the protest?
That's where the dilemma is. When you bring in federal troops under NORTHCOM to report to the president.
NORTHCOM is what?
Northern Command. In other words, these troops are not reporting to the government. They are reporting to the federal government. And when you don't have that local command and control in the same way, it could open the door for errors or mistakes, and it can be disconcerting.
I'm looking at apparently riot shields now having been raised in Dallas. You see that plastic that is being lifted in front of the face and body of uniformed officers who are now in a line. They have on, looks to be sort of a riot gear of kind with helmets on, as well as their shields up. They're standing across people who have different signs. I'm not able to read what they say in the moment in time, but this is the police line. They're now moving towards the people. As you can see right now, a quick pace. They are gathered together, standing in one horizontal line as they're going forward and forward. We have people who do have weapons on them as the line appears to be wrapping around the park area, where you've got people who are with signs saying "End ICE," looking back at the crowd of officers who are now right next to a flag and people who appear to be remaining on the streets, including a flag involving Free Palestine. This is now in Dallas this morning. I believe when we're seeing it right now, Scott, I mean, obviously what we're seeing is an escalation in terms of the approach of these officers towards civilians they would like to lead. This is no longer California. This is now Texas. Do you anticipate there being some sort of legal recourse there as well in terms of the governor acting?
It depends on what the governor decides to do. But what I see there are trained police doing trained police maneuvers. Those are not military maneuvers. Police have an entire range of escalation tactics. They have the tools for that. They're trained for that.
And they can as well, legally.
Well, yeah, consistent with the Constitution, right? They're bound by due process. The crowds are protected by the First Amendment. And the police are trained about the right way to find balance. The courts can get involved if the balance isn't struck correctly. Our troops do a lot of valuable things, but this is not, I don't think, in the top 20 things that active duty military are trained to do. These are police activities.
Active duty military, I think about the Marines maybe point as well, and maybe doing so as we speak. These are military members, not necessarily in Dallas, but military members who are trained for overseas combat.
Combat operations.
This is not domestic. Now, describe why that distinction is so important in terms of the way this can play out.
I think if we go back in history and find out the That's a story that's always told that whenever the Marines were there supporting the local police and they said, cover me, and the Marines literally opened fire and destroyed the building. That's not, that word cover me does not mean the same thing for police as it does for Marines. Cover me means suppress all possible fire. So the bottom line is we're going to find that active duty soldiers receive no training on working with Americans. It's not the same whatsoever about dealing in a combat situation.
What are the risks of having these Pentagon sending 700 Marines to LA now amid the unrest? And obviously, because the National Guard takes orders from the federal government, obviously they have a commander-in-chief who might be out with the governor.
Actually, the Marines and these activated National Guard are going to be commanded by one commander that will report to the Northern Command military command process. The concern is that they may not be well connected. And young Marines, no offense, the average age of Marines is much younger than the National Guardsmen, and they're much more likely to follow exactly what they hear in terms of orders. I wish they received no training.
I see police now running right now. They appear to be running in an area. I see some form of weapons. I'm not sure if these are lethal force weapons or really trying to quell and unrest in a non-lethal manner. They are heading towards an area. We have Jason Carroll. I want to go to Jason. Jason, what are you saying? What's happening? Why are they running? Jason, talk to me.
Well, right now the officers are telling them to just say boo, boo. It seems like they're trying to disperse this crowd.
Are they effective right now? I think the money were running at one point in time. I do hear some sounds in the background and screaming. Are people following their orders and commands?
Well, again, Laura, right now what we've been hearing is the officers saying in command, boo, boo. And what we've seen is, to try to give you some perspective, get my cameraman to turn around, you can see the crowd has started to disperse. They are moving in the direction down the street, away from the officers. You know, earlier I mentioned that tipping point when, you know, perhaps we get to the point where officers have said, well, they just have had enough. And it seems like this is that point. They are trying at this point to disperse the crowd. The crowd had started to thin out much more than what we saw earlier this evening. And so perhaps the officers here on the ground said this might be their opportunity to finally disperse those who were left. And that's what we're seeing. They're moving in a uniform line down the street. Now they're just giving the command to hold their position, to hold the line. But again, Laura, not that many people who are now left. I'll have my photographer try to show those who are left. And you can see a sparse number of people here in the street at this point, compared to what we saw even just an hour ago, even probably just about 30 minutes ago, near the top of your show when we were talking. A lot less people who are out here, and officers continue to move. Now, perhaps what we'll see in the next 20 minutes or so, they'll decide to move again in formation down another block to try to thin out even more of those who are left. Laura?
Jason Carroll, please stay there. Let's keep our eyes and ears open for us. General Randy Manners, Scott Shugart, thank you both so much. We have much more out of LA ahead. The protests escalating, the rivalry between President Trump and Governor Newsom to a whole new level. The president even suggested that Newsom should be arrested. Newsom's latest response is next. This is going to be so tasty. I think you know what you're doing. I'm so excited.
Evil Longoria searching for Spain. Sunday at 9 on CNN.
COPD isn't pretty. From the struggle to breathe to getting stopped in your tracks. But with Trelegy, I can finally move forward. With 3 medicines in one inhaler, Trelegy keeps my airways open for a full 24 hours and prevents future flare-ups. Once daily Trelegy also improves lung function, so I can breathe more freely all day and night.
Trelegy will replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor for abortion, breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about once daily Trelegy for COPD, because breathing should be beautiful all day and night.
Alright, so that's one pair of glasses. Yep. With prescription lenses, plus anti-reflective lens coating, scratch-resistant coating,
Did I choose?
UV protection, award-winning customer service. That's also me. Free returns, free exchanges, and free frame adjustments for life.
And how much more is that?
Oh, it's all included at Orby First.
So my glasses
Are still just $95.
Oh.
Surprise! I just get excited. What is going on?
You'll love how the new Homes.com helps you get quick answers about any property by connecting them to the actual listing agent.
Oh, so I'm done?
Oh, no. We're still not sure everyone knows that we're the only site that always connects you to the listing agent rather than selling off your contact info. So we're going to keep you up there a little while longer.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting great exposure.
Speaking of exposure, can we get him a hat?
Homes.com. We've done your homework.
When Tractor Supply customers experience its personalized service made possible by T-Mobile for Business. With T-Mobile's reliable 5G business internet, employees get the information they need instantly. Tractor Supply goes further with T-Mobile for Business. There's a reason Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. A heartbeat strong, steady, unwavering. Like the people who keep this country moving, doing what they do best. Helping neighbors, pitching in, and getting it done. For them, only America's most dependable truck will do it. In every Chevy truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard. This is a place to worship the Father.
But you will make it a den of thieves.
The Chosen last summer.
If you had a concerningly large collection of butterfly clips, it may be time.
Get the same trusted Lysol disinfection that now has a scent that'll make you move. Effortlessly kill 99.9% of germs with new Lysol Brand New Day Lavender. You leave a scent you'll love. Siggy Skew, full of protein, less ingredients, less sugar, less sets you free.
Starting at $3.99.99. Some say you can't have it all. Clearly, they've never been here. Play the Unmissable on PlayStation 5.
Strengthen damaged hair for deep repair. Everpure Bond Repair from L'Oreal Paris. Our system with Bonding Care Complex repairs weak inner hair bonds to strengthen hair in just one use. Everpure from L'Oreal Paris. Try our new Bond Repair oil and serum. You're worth it.
My Happy Place, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
Protest on the street of Los Angeles for the fourth night in a row. Law enforcement just moments ago pushing back protesters armed with rubber bullets and clothed in riot gear. CNN's Michael Yoshida is live on the scene in LA. Michael, describe what you're seeing right now. Michael, can you see me? Can you hear me? We're waiting to hear sound right now. We're watching right now. What appears to be law enforcement that's moving back this area. People behind the line. I see Michael Yoshida right now moving backwards. There's a crowd of people. I hear sirens in the background as well. There appears to be almost now nighttime in Los Angeles. We're waiting to see what happens once daylight was no longer there and going through it. Michael Yoshida, we're going to come back to the standby for one moment. We're going to come back to your sounds. We're watching the crowd in the area as the line of officers continues to move from coast to coast. Protests are erupting in several major cities today in support of California labor leader David Huerta, president of the California chapter of the Service Employees International Union. Huerta was released today on a $50,000 bond and is being charged with felony conspiracy to impede an officer. Looking now at the moment Huerta was arrested on Friday, you can see him being pinned to the ground by federal agents before being taken away in handcuffs. He allegedly sat down in front of a gate to block ICE agents from conducting a raid trained at LA Business. His union said that he was hospitalized after being injured during that arrest. Here's what Quaker said today after his release.
Nothing will be resolved with violence. Violence begets violence. We need to be able to have our movement needs to be one of nonviolence. I don't know what they have in store for me. I imagine at this point in time, I am their project, and they're going to put me as their example of what happened.
Hello.
I'm prepared to take on that tree, and I'm prepared to
Man, I'm so sorry to bother you while you are cleaning your car.
Service Employees International Union will welcome. How is it
Nothing, a couple
following
things.
this hospitalization?
Once again, thank you for being such a wonderful friend. I have money for you if you want it. I tried to call you earlier because I was gonna stop by there, but I didn't know if you was at home. Hey, look, there's so many things. So my question is this: how long do you have to talk? Yeah. You're going inside the what? Oh, okay. Okay. First of all, I think the dynamic between you and Jason is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Well, because y'all talk to each other, like if a person didn't know y'all, they would think y'all was married and y'all couldn't stand each other. But what they don't realize is that y'all love each other that intensely that y'all talk shit to each other like that. And it's funny because that's hilarious. Because I didn't look. This is part of the story I never knew. I never knew y'all knew each other when y'all were kids. Like that crazy, like to the point that.
And situational football is not just played on the offensive side, is it? Defense understanding, as you noted, where the first down marker was and making sure they didn't get there.
On third down, Mixon. Boy, no chance as he was met and dropped behind the line there. So still a scoreless game in the first, but they're going to go for this thing on their own side of the field on fourth down. Work in the middle of the field, and he's got a man complete. And they get him down, but not before he takes it across the 40-yard line. A curious decision to go for it, but it pays off with a first down. 4th and 2, they got it. That was kind of that gray area. Is that a feel thing, whether you go run or pass there offensively?
I think it's a feel thing. It's a tendency thing about what you like to do to yourself on offense, as well as knowing how strong they are against the run on defense. Got to make a decision, and they made the correct one.
And give him about 5 as he gets this up to the 48-yard line.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty right there. Look at how quick those blockers fired off the line once the ball was snapped. That was an O-line on a mission, all in sync, and the defense is lucky that play only picked up 5 yards.
Now 2nd and 5. Mixing up the middle. And he's got it across the midfield, striping into Washington territory. Still a couple yards short of the first as the 3-yard gain brings up a third down.
Some of the most unselfish players on any football team, defensive tackles, because we ask them to just eat up blocks, allow other people to make tackles. But when he can make a play himself, as we just saw there, that's a big day.
A handoff to Mixon, and he's got the first down before being taken down at the 46. Give him 3 yards and a fresh set of downs.
They did tell us they wanted to establish the ground game early, didn't they?
They did, in a small sample size that we've seen so far, but pretty good return.
Yeah, you gotta like that. They've strung together a couple of first downs, established what they wanted, the running game. And guess what? They also got their lead guy running it pretty well, too.
Looking for a seam, but finding none. He'll get back to the line of scrimmage, and that's it. Making the stop that time, Bobby Wagner.
As usual, the hallmark of a good run defense, linebackers making plays near the line of scrimmage. Absolutely nowhere to run there.
Now a 2nd and 10. They'll run it for the first time with Dameon Pierce. It'll be a pickup of 5, and that leaves him with 5 more. 3rd and 5 now.
A quick burst there, and he nicely bit off a pretty decent gain.
They'll need 5 on this play to move the sticks. They'll run here with Mixon. And they'll take this one down to about the 40. Only a yard on the pickup there, and it's going to leave them with a 4th down.
Well, this was just simply excellent defense. On this 3rd down, they had to be alert for the possibility of a pass, but that didn't stop them at all from understanding what was going on when they decided to run the football, and they just swarmed and stopped them for almost no gain.
And this is good from 57 yards out. That was bombs away right there. And it's now 3-0 Texans. They were probably hoping to get him a little bit closer for a shorter.
things up for maybe later in the game, trying to establish the inside run with toughness now, hopefully get to the perimeter later, and let's face it, you could do worse than a 4-yard run on first down.
And he's going to be stopped close to the first down marker at Washington's 12-yard line. It's 22. 3rd down and 1. Again, it's Mixon. And he picks up the first down yardage as he takes this one down to the 15. Call it a gain of 7, and it gets him a new set of downs.
Well, you certainly have to give a little credit here because they're playing this game now at their pace. This is ball control football, sustained runs, taking their time, and making it work.
And they get to him quickly here as he's stopped right around the 13. Give him a couple on the carry there, 2nd and 8. Mixon. He's going to get 4 out of this as he's down to the 10-yard line. Here is 3rd down and 4. Going for it with Pierce. And he's brought down short by a yard. It's a 3rd down gain of 4.
What a luxury to have a guy like this who can not only spell your starter, but can come in and keep drives going.
And no move to get the offense off the field. They'll stay put on 4th and 1. They'll run with Mixon. And he's able to pick up the first before he's brought down inside the 5 at the 4. They only got a couple, but a couple's all that they needed as they convert on 4th. There wasn't even thought of a short field goal. There was no hesitation. They were going for it.
I think he was thinking ahead a couple plays ago, that if he got in this situation, they were definitely going for it. And you're right, it was a confident call and a decisive run to pick it up.
And he'll be stopped about a yard shy of the goal line after a pickup of about 3.
And now defensively, you have to look at this like the game's on the line. It's just the 3rd quarter, but another touchdown given up here could really spell an end to their chances, so they need to toughen up and keep them out of the end zone.
2 of their 3 red zone trips so far, they've come up empty on. They'll look to reverse that. And this time he is in.
Yes.
Joe Mixon, his 2nd touchdown of the afternoon. And the Texans are able to extend their lead in the final seconds of this 3rd quarter. And it's no good. He missed it wide to the left. Now he's back out there to boom this one away, maybe with some frustration after the PAT miss. And he'll wisely just take a knee here, and this ball will come out to the 30-yard line. Out there set and ready for this next drive, the Washington offense. And here we are almost through 3 quarters of play, and this passing game still has not really found any kind of rhythm.
Put it mildly, because they're not even over 100 yards yet. And in today's NFL, where it's a pass-first league, that is quite surprising. Not many teams patient enough to stick with the run. Everybody wants to advance the ball through the air. They've got to get their timing back.
And they're not going to get to the line to run another play. So we will switch ends as the 3rd quarter has come to a close. This is the National Football League on EA Sports. So from the 39 now, they'll come up on a 1st and 10. Off the play fake, Daniels. Being chased out left. And this turns into a nice gain with a slide at the end. Good coverage downfield led to him taking off, picking up the first down on a 13-yard run. To throw is Daniels. Escaping the pressure right. And he slides and covers up at the end as he's going to be able to pick up decent yardage. Ball on the 40 now. Here's 2nd and 2. They'll run out of the gun with Eckler. And he'll get it down on the play to the 37.
They'll get 3 as the drive continues. It's a first down. And they'll have it in the red zone before he crosses over out of bounds. So not his arm, but hurting him with his legs. A gain of 19 on the keeper and a first down. Well, with him trailing here in the second half, maybe his legs can try to give this offense a spark.
And that's the benefit of having a young quarterback, right? Having a rookie, a guy who will say, hold it a second, I have a little bit of fearlessness to my game. It isn't working as well the other way. Let's see what I can do to help my team this way. And boy, he did it there.
On first down, here's Daniels to throw. Looking for McLaurin, and he's got him. Touchdown, Washington. An 18-yard touchdown grab. And the Commanders are able to make some inroads here to that deficit. So Washington now with an important 2-point conversion attempt. And now an audible here into something else. Daniels going to try and throw for it. It's complete. But he will not get into the end zone. And that one hurts as it will remain a 2-score game here in the fourth. Following the touchdown, here's Seibert now to kick it off. From a yard or two deep, here comes a return. And he'll get it up past the 20 to about the 22. The Texans offense ready to go here for their next drive. Well, there are 2 scores on the plus side. Still time here in this fourth quarter, but maybe you start thinking about playing keep away?
Yeah, I think here's the situation. You're not thinking touchdowns anymore. You're just thinking first downs to keep up with your...
And intercepted. Maybe the turning point they need. And they'll start with great field position at the 41-yard line. That is the play they needed in a 2-score game here in the fourth quarter.
No doubt about it. They did what they had to do to give themselves a chance to get back into the game. They turned it over to the offense. They are now in charge.
Now they need to execute. On first and 10, it's Robinson. And the big boys up front, they're going to stop him right at the line. Officially no gain on the play, and it's second down.
Early down stuff to put this offense in a precarious position. We know that securing the point of attack, especially against the big-bodied guys in the middle of this ditty, has got to be priority one.
Second down, Daniels. Flush to his right. Oh, he's got some breathing room. And this turns into a nice gain with a slide at the end. A nice job there on the escape and scramble. A first down, a 16-yard gain. Up the middle with Eckler. And they take him down, losing yardage back at the 27. Officially, it's a 1-yard loss. That's going to bring up second and 11.
Well, that kind of hit will certainly fire up your team both on the field and on the sideline. Tackles for lost yardage, they're always welcome.
Now a second down throw for Daniels. On the screen, this is Eckler. And he gets it inside the 10 to the 9. Here's first and goal. Now Daniels. And they're not able to hook up there. Incomplete. So it's Commanders football as we get back to it. They've got it second and goal as they look for a late touchdown. Another shot from the 9 on 2nd and goal. Here's Daniels. And they're going to get him. They bring him down to the sack back at the 16-yard line. Jalen Petrie in there to take him down, and the clock will roll. And you hate to say it with a rookie quarterback. He's done some good things, but a little bit overwhelmed back there, hasn't he?
He certainly has, but in his defense, he hasn't had a lot.
And this is caught now for a late touchdown. So hold everything here. This one's not over yet. Okay, game on. Don't go anywhere yet. You got a one-score game now. Probably going to rely on the onside kick coming up.
Yeah, they have to. It's not a high percentage play, but it's better than not having a chance at all. And that's when you put your leapers and your flyers on one side, get that high hop, and hope that one of the guys can come up with it.
And on the other side, get that hands team ready.
No doubt about it.
Oh, this will frustrate a coach right here. The flag is out before they get off the extra point, and this is going to be a delay of game. Now, the offense knew it. They were already starting to walk back as that one is accepted. Here we go now as we get set for a big two-point conversion. They'll try and throw for it. Forced out to his left. And he'll get in for the 2 points, and in so doing, cut the deficit to 2 points. Following the touchdown, here's Seibert now to kick it off. Houston's offense already at the line, set to get going. And this game not quite over yet. And we'll likely see them take all 3 timeouts defensively, so they can't just kneel this one out. They're going to have to try to run a few plays.
You're exactly right. They've got to get a first down and make them use up all their timeouts in order to feel like they have this one in hand.
Another run on 2nd down, trying to cover up. And this won't be enough to pick up the first. A gain of 2, 3rd and 1. Now a timeout called for by the defense as they'll stop it with just over 40 seconds to go in the game. Here now, 3rd and a yard. They give to Mixon to try to pick it up. And the Texans are going to have a first down, and that is the big one, as they should be able to run it out from here. So from the 39 now, they'll come up on a 1st and 10. Just a little too lackadaisical, Charles, and they didn't get up and snap the ball in time. Delay of game.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he understood where the clock was located. In different stadiums, it's in different places. You have to check that in pregame and make sure you're aware so you don't run into penalties like these.
A couple more minutes, and maybe the outcome of this with Charles would have been different, but ultimately time runs out on the comeback, so it falls short, and they hold on to win this by just 1 possession.
Not the 4th quarter they wanted, but they did earn the win, and they'll be happy about that, and they should be. Now they're going to go back to practice, see what they can do to prevent a future lead from slipping away like this one was.